What's up, guys? This is Noah Kim. Hope you enjoyed the last video, and today I'd like to get into a little more detail about personally my favorite DC sports team, the Washington Capitals. As I mentioned in my intro video, I'm a big hockey fan. Was playing in youth, high school, and college. And the whole time I was following, very interestingly, the trend that Alexander Ovechkin started when he first came to DC. I think for people in the DMV area that have grown to love the Caps fan, especially after the 2018 Cup win, we need to realize that Alex Ovechkin has done a lot. And it's fitting that with the unusual times of COVID-19 now and the regular season officially considered concluded, that he's won yet another goal-scoring title. Ovechkin now has 8 Maurice Rocket Richard trophies, which actually gives him the most all-time by a single player. And I personally think he can catch Gretzky. I know he'd have to average around 38-40 goals a season. He has to play, I think, 6-7 more years, but he has it in him. He's a physical player, but he's smart. And people underrate that kind of hockey IQ. He can get open, even with his decreased speed. His shot's still there. Boom, you got yourself a goal. Unlike a lot of other goal scorers that have been in the past, Jonathan Chichu, Devin Setaguchi, even Yager. A lot of these guys, the old puck era guys, Vincent LeCavalier, they got slower. They don't have the IQ. They use their athleticism to score a lot of their goals. And Ovechkin is a bit of both. He does the athleticism, but he has the hockey IQ. So I definitely think that he can take Gretzky and become the greatest goal scorer of all time. Speaking of which, I mean, we're blessed here in DC. I know the Wizards, Redskins, a lot of question marks, but Capitals, not a lot of question marks. We also have John Carlson, and I don't think people realize how good he really was. This year, he was on pace for 92 points. Had he reached that milestone, he'd have had the most points by a defenseman since Ray Bourque, and Ray Bourque is a Hall of Famer, one of the greatest defensemen of all time. John Carlson, I'm not saying he's there yet, but if he continues to continue the success, he could be one of the greatest, at least American hockey defensemen of all time. He's got a wicked shot, he's big, and nowadays the modern NHL, you don't always have to be a big bruiser. You have to be smart. How do you cut off angles? How do you poke check? How do you play the defensive zone? And he understands that perfectly as a power play quarterback at the point. And I'm very excited that John Carlson's coming with us to the playoffs. Speaking of the playoffs, we know that COVID-19 put a damper in March on the season. However, Gary Bettman, the NHL commissioner, said some good news recently. So basically, right now we are in phase 1, where players are coming back to practice facilities, still remaining social distance, playing it safe. And right now we'll see what happens. But I know for the Tampa Bay Lightning, another metropolitan rival, they've had 5 players test positive for COVID. So we want to make sure the Caps are safe, but we want them on the ice. And we know, similar to the NBA, that there's going to be a special playoff format later in July for the remaining teams. Specifically for the NHL, 24 teams are invited to the playoffs. So it's a little bit bigger of a pool, but luckily our Caps, the Caps are still on the top of the Metropolitan, and it's going to be very, very competitive. We have a lot of good teams that we are going to have to face. We have, the Pittsburgh Penguins are in a down year, but they're there. The Toronto Maple Leafs, Boston Bruins, Pittsburgh Penguins. We got a lot of favorites coming in. I think that the Caps have a legitimate shot. I think a lot of the title contenders are out west still. But the landscape is still primed for a Capital second cup run, I think. We have everything in place. We have John Carlson, who's arguably going to win the Norris as the best defenseman this year. We have Alex Ovechkin. We have depth. Burakovsky, Vrana, they have taken that next step. They're not stars yet, and we might never see them be stars. But if you contribute 20 goals, 40, 50 points, you are an above-average top 6 wing in the NHL. So I'm glad that they've stepped up. We've gotten our depth right. We have a lot of depth players. Chandler Stevenson. We have Use earlier in the season before he left the team. We have a lot of depth that we need come playoff time, and that's how we won in 2018. That's how we're going to win, hopefully, in 2020. So that's a little bit about the playoff picture with the COVID-19 being in effect, and my thoughts on the different state of things for some of the positive players. But of course, it was not always good. I know that it's an unusual issue for the Caps fans to mention Brendan Leipsic. I'm not sure if you heard, but Brendan Leipsic went viral for the wrong reasons, where he was basically exposed for saying some pretty negative things about his own teammates, other Capitals players, other former teammates, and their girlfriends and wives. As a result, the Capitals caught him. He's currently in the Continental Hockey League, and he probably will never play in the NHL again. It's interesting. We definitely want to understand both sides, right? We want to make sure that we recognize that it's not acceptable for that kind of behavior. At the same time, people are worried about what about the privacy? What about, it was a private group chat, a friend leaked it. I think that's true. But as a professional athlete, you're held to a higher standard, right? Charles Barkley said, I'm not a role model. I'm not here to be your hero, which is a real point, and I agree. But at the same time, it's the same thing. You don't want to risk your inappropriate behavior being leaked and ruining your career, right? Same thing with the NHL. If you're getting paid hundreds of thousands, even millions of dollars to play the game that we love, you should definitely be careful. I know it's just a group chat, but there are consequences. And in terms of the impact for the Capitals, I think it's minimal. Brendan Leipsic, a solid, gritty winger, but he's more of a bottom six guy, plays some power play, a little bit of power play, mostly penalty kill, but we don't really need that. With speedier guys on like Carl Hagelin, a really underrated Capitals guy, playing the PK with his speed, got the offense. We can definitely make it up. TJ Oshie, Nicholas Backstrom is a good defensive center, Lars Eller. We already have the defensive forwards we need. So I don't think Brendan Leipsic is a huge loss. I think he is more a cautionary tale, right? We have our opinions. We have things that we want to talk about, but be careful. Be careful of who you affect and who you need to talk to down the road. You never know, the people that you are saying bad things about could become your friend in the future. So definitely, I think the Leipzig issue is behind us, and it's a cautionary tale. Capitals, all in good health and ready to go. Well, let's hope that we just go along with the phase guidelines by NHL, take our time, and we're ready come playoff time. I think the Capitals have a legitimate shot, I say, at minimum, that they make the conference finals. Don't at me. Maybe at me if you want to, but I think they can also win the cup. Thanks for listening to me talk a little bit more in detail about the Capitals, and make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. See ya.